Well, a very, very happy Monday and welcome to the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. Today is April 20th of 2026. Hi, everyone. How are you guys doing? I hope everyone has had themselves a good weekend. I know I did. Um, it actually went a lot better than I expected, to be honest. Usually, WrestleMania weekend is so compact, so busy that I don't even have the energy to stay up to um to watch WrestleMania 42. And so got a chance to watch WrestleMania 42 both nights. We'll share a lot of that here in this hour of our sports talk show. Uh, but got a chance to watch the Reds, hang out with some friends of mine, took the kids out of town, just to get them away. Sometimes you just need to get them away, right? So it was a fun weekend overall, but we actually have ourselves a very busy week to look ahead to. Okay, NFL draft is coming up. This coming up Thursday, Cincinnati Bengals made some moves, so we'll talk about that in this hour. Obviously, we'll cover our Cincinnati sports. The Reds swept the Minnesota Twins, and Bearcats baseball took 2 out of 3 over the weekend. So we'll talk about that. But what is your initial reaction of WrestleMania 42? I think that is first and foremost the biggest question. Um, I I think it gave us a little bit of everything that we wanted to see. It kept us on our toes so that we have something to look forward to in Monday Night Raw, which is usually the biggest Raw of the year following WrestleMania. A lot of things could and we may plan on seeing happening tonight as the progression moves forward. There was a lot of big stories set to some unanswered questions set for the stage for SmackDown this Friday. We'll get into them. So, if you haven't got a chance to watch WrestleMania night one or night two, and you guys want to watch that first, I suggest this is not your show. This is not your hour. Go watch those shows, WrestleMania, and then come back and tune in here. If that's the case, be prepared. A lot of spoilers here, but um while you're doing that, if you're tuning in, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, have those notifications on. It helps us tremendously. With your views, whether it's audio, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Facebook, please, please, please like, share, and subscribe. Um, there was a couple big things that took caught my eye. Um, First and foremost, had to be, I think, the question that didn't get resolved that actually it has more questions to the story, and that is Cody Rhodes may have won the fight on Saturday, but that rivalry is far from over. That whether that picks up and continues into our next PLE, which is Backlash in May, um, there's a lot of moving pieces in that match. So that really caught my attention, and it almost asked me, all right, what's really going on? And if there's a deeper story, I'm definitely intrigued in seeing it. But to my status point, it was like here, if you need to comprehend a moment, a match out of it all, this is the match that you're still trying to kind of comprehend because it's been a long time since we've seen Randy Orton go to this level. He didn't win the match, but the brutal attack he laid on Cody Rhodes after the match was over, standing above him to end night one of WrestleMania with that WWE championship over his head says, man, I'm not done with you. I'm determined and I'm vowing to go the distance and become a 15-time champion. It was also the other things in between, the Jelly Roll getting a chance to have his little moment, elbowing, jumping, giving Pat McAfee the jumping elbow, and through the announce table. I thought that was special. And then obviously Pat McAfee comes back out and Randy Orton RKO's him. That was a moment alone. I Show Speed having his little fame, getting a chance to kind of do what Logan Paul's move does and jump off the top turnbuckle onto Logan Paul on the announce table after the match, after Logan Paul, in the vision, just takes out I Show Speed. Let's show some class and respect. Great to see the return of Paige. That was definitely unexpected. I'm surprised at the WWE left the Bella Twins leading up to WrestleMania, before saying, you know what, all right, we're gonna go ahead and make that switch. I love how all the pieces aligned. This is Paige's home, and it's great to see her back. And then also on top of that, you got a chance to see Roman Reigns reclaim his throne at WrestleMania. Um, Big Bianca Belair announcing her pregnancy on night one. And we'll have to learn more about the speculations of the Street Profits and their future. I don't know if this is goodbye for everyone or whatever the case may be, but just know that Naomi just and Jimmy just had their child last month, and now we're expected to see in. So a little bit of twist. Cause I expected, from my understanding, to see Bianca return, but apparently she's not going to return anytime soon. Um, and then my biggest thing has to come from Brock Lesnar. Night two, first match, Obafemi, great match, and we'll talk about that here in this hour. But night two, after Obafemi beat Brock Lesnar decided to showcase his future by taking off his boots, taking off his gloves, leaving it in the ring, and it doesn't matter if you like or if you hate Brock Lesnar. It had to be an emotional moment, and probably the most emotional moment I've had in quite some time to watch Brock Lesnar leave his boots and his gloves in the ring, which is an professional wrestler's indication that they are retiring. We've seen The Undertaker do it. We've seen Triple H do it. We've seen AJ Styles do it. And typically, to show respect, to say, look, I left it all in the ring, a wrestler will take off his boots after the match, win or lose. They take off their gloves or whatever, special equipment that has dignified them, and they leave them in the ring and left. You felt through the television screen that emotion with Brock Lesnar, with Paul Heyman. And we already know Brock Lesnar as a human being. He just typically does not deal with people. But the fact that he would go out of his way to thank the crowd, climb up on a turnbuckle and thank the crowd, hand fiving and handshaking almost everyone going back up the ramp after the match, thanking the crowd, something you typically do not see from Brock Lesnar, but such a humble image was left to a career that dominated and was the pivotal point person. Okay, he was the beast. He was the one that you'd have to go through in order to solidify yourself on the top card of any wrestling promotion, whether that's Raw, SmackDown, it doesn't matter. Brock Lesnar was that tablestone. He conquered John Cena. He conquered Triple H. He conquered Roman Reigns. He gave the Undertaker his first loss at WrestleMania. He's done everything and more. And I think what's more impressive is that Brock Lesnar has done it in the square circle as an amateur wrestler, in the octagon. He's done it in multiple sports, multiple regions, multiple champions. How many professional wrestlers can you arguably say has had a successful career in the WWE, in professional wrestling, and outside professional wrestling? I'm sorry, but even Ronda Rousey's success does not live up to the expectations and to the standards that Brock Lesnar left the ring, left out there in his career. So for me, Brock Lesnar has always been a GOAT in multiple aspects. And you come to appreciate that when you see his career coming to an end. We know Father Time is undefeated. We know that all good things come to an end. And this was such a great moment, not just the match itself, which was actually a match, whether it was 5 minutes or not. It wasn't a squash match. It was a wrestling match. It was a fight. It was a brawl. You came in, you moved around a little bit, you tested and teased some people, you hit a couple finishers, and you moved on. And Brock Lesnar, Obafemi, showed his imperience, dominated Brock Lesnar, showed no signs of a reflection of it, and that's a whole conversation ourselves to another degree. Now, whether or not Brock Lesnar has one more match was revealed over the weekend that SummerSlam was going to be taking place at in Minneapolis. And so there's already speculations and rumors that's been circulating, thinking that Brock Lesnar could have one more match, and that could be very well true. But this is the indication that Brock Lesnar is moving out. And I think this is a perfect time because you have a guy like Obafemi that fits the bill that is going to be taking his spot. And um, whatever the future holds for Brock Lesnar, I our show, the TNC Sports Talk, thank you for all the years, all the dominance, all the conversations that's left us. I want to thank Brock Lesnar for the character adjustment that he did away from Paul Heyman that has had us laughing, had us that showed this human side of Brock Lesnar other than this complete destruction of a man. I respect Brock Lesnar. He's a Hall of Fame in my books. He's one of the best in the top elite when it comes down to dominance and to standardizing others hold him. And he has given back numerous of times. So whatever the future holds for Brock Lesnar, we wish him the best. We will continue our wrestling conversations here in this hour. Want to jump into some baseball conversations because, yes, although wrestling was a big deal, the Cincinnati Reds played, took on the Minnesota Twins on the road, and they ended up sweeping them. Boy, wasn't this a fun weekend for the Cincinnati Reds. I was saying this over heading into the weekend that this is, the Minnesota Twins, they're coming in 11-8 record, good in their division, and they're going to be on the road. Now, given the Twins or the Reds were playing really good, Twins were playing really good, and I thought, man, this could be a make or break series for the month of April. And, we have issues getting offensive going. We're having issues with our starting rotation, and every pitcher pitched about an average of 5 innings. Brandon Williamson on Friday went 5 1/3. Andrew Abbott went 4 2/3, and Brady Singer went 6 innings. Now, nothing to really, I guess, to say, all right, be impressed about. right? I mean, Brandon Williamson, 5 1/3 of an inning, giving up only 1 run. Although he walked 2 batters, only struck out twice. So we see that the walk to strike ratios need to be, improved. But therefore, he only gave up 1 run, which isn't too bad. Andrew Rabbit gave up 4 runs, which is a lot better. Still walked 3, only struck out 3. And then Brady Singer, who, has had a couple of bad outings, he gave up 3 runs, still walked 4. So we're still seeing some good signs out of the Reds. Saturday's win was 2-1. Suarez doubled in the fourth to center field, scoring in Cruz and Stewart, the only 2 ones they needed to win the ball game. Another 1-run game. Matter of fact, Saturday was a 1-run game. Tony Santillan came in with the save, going 1 inning, striking out 2 of the 3 batters. Offense picked up and scored some runs, pulling off the win. Some late innings, right? That's what they needed. And then you get into Sunday's game, they were actually trailing in 3-1 in the ninth inning. They came back, scored 3 runs in the ninth, 3 runs in the 10th to win the game. Graham Ashcraft picked up the save. So one thing I take away from the Reds this weekend is how the Cincinnati Reds have it's a never end fight all the way up to the 27th out. And that has led to their success and their sweep over the Minnesota Twins. They continue road dominance. They're now 8-2 on the road, which I think is impressive. And I think if I'm not mistaken, they're 14-8 so far this year, which, by the way, brings us to another conversation. 14-8 start is the best start to the Cincinnati Reds since 2006. At which that team was a 15-7, began the season, and they only finished with an 80-82 record. So 20 years ago, the Reds started very similar to how we started. I don't know if they finished. I didn't look too deep if they finished into the playoffs or not, but they were under 500 to finish off. But this team has gone off to a really high start. So let's look at what's going on with the Cincinnati Reds. Let's break it down, okay? And we'll start off offensively. Here's one fun fact that I took away I want to share with you. Ellie De La Cruz, Sal Stewart, and Gino Suarez, the 3-4-5 hitters, on base percentage at 870. It's the second highest in all of baseball today. The rest of the team, though, on base percentage is only 492, worst in baseball. So what does that indicate to you? Is that we are struggling with Steer, Stevenson, Benson, um, Jose Trevino, PJ Higgins in that sense. We're struggling on base percentage among the elite. But our 3-4-5 guys, the plan that originally started out with Ellie De La Cruz back to back with Gino Suarez, and then you slid Stewart right there in there, they are getting on base. They are providing opportunities. As a matter of fact, it was Friday's ball game where it was because of Cruz, and it was because of Stewart who got on base, then was driven in by Suarez. And there you go, right? Just a little bit. Yesterday, I think it was the ninth inning, right? Cruz was on, Stewart got on base, bases loaded. Suarez empties them off of a double. I mean, these are our offensive powers. Now, okay, can we better ourselves elsewhere? Yes, I think a 550, if not a 600 OOBS, it's better for the rest of the team, but keep up the good work. Defensively, okay? Um, Last team in baseball to commit an error was, from the first 11 games. They are 986 percentage on fielding. They are 14th in baseball in that category, and they are playing solid. Base running, They're between the aggressive and cautious on base running. I know that Terry Francona mentioned that he wasn't really going to be aggressive on base running this year. I mean, I think opportunities have to present itself, and I think that happens over time. I think one of the things you risk about when it comes down to aggressive base running are making outs when you can give yourself an opportunity to drive them in on RBIs, right? If you're going to test Matt McClain's speed from first to third or even to home in a out, what is that risk? And is it greater than getting that out? And obviously, the Reds don't score that much runs, so there really hasn't been an opportunity so much. Now, the other thing is also injury prevention. Last thing we need to do is get tired or get injured because we're running the bases. Starting pitchers are 6-6 this year. They have a 4.33 ERA, which is only 19th in baseball. Williamson is a 2.25 in his 3 games. Burns 2.42. Louder only 3.52. As mentioned, the players that were going to fill in that fifth and final spot of the rotation before Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo went down with an injury, they are the ones who are having themselves a solid a solid start to the season, which is great for this organization. Bullpen is ERA is a 2.31, best in baseball right now. Managers, think about this. This is the second sweep for the Reds on the road and only 3 road series. They tied against Miami, but they swept the Rangers and they swept the Twins. 8-2 record on the road this far. Third since the 1900s. 6-0 in 1-run games. The last time they started off with an 8-2 road record was 1973 and 1990. In 1990, they went to the World Series. And their bullpen ERA at 2.31 is best compared to a 2.85 in the Atlanta Braves. So the Cincinnati Reds have played, I believe, above exceptional baseball. I know it doesn't clearly see it, but you know, it doesn't matter where you come up with the runs as long as at the end of the day you pick up the W. And we're seeing it not only in our top 3 stars that we want to see it in Ellie De La Cruz, um, Sal Stewart, and Gino Suarez, but we also seen it in some other improvements. PJ Higgins since getting called up from Trevino being placed on the IL. He's been playing really well. Has a very keen eyesight. Matter of fact, didn't he not in the game off of a ABS challenge yesterday afternoon where they finally won? Maybe that was Saturday. I'm not too sure. Don't remember. But he ended up, he's playing very well. Dane Myers coming off the bench is showing ourselves some skill. Sam Maul as well. It's going to be probably something to convince Terry Francona and the management to keep 3 lefties when Caleb Ferguson comes back. The Reds are playing really good baseball, and it has to be exciting to play. They stand alone right now in the NL Central, and you look how competitive all 5 ball clubs in the NL Central have winning records. All 5 ball clubs in the NL Central are within 2 games apart, and all 5 ball clubs have double-digit wins in the first 22 games. So the NL Central has gotten off to a very, very fast start. Talk about that here in a moment. Let's take a look at what's going on down on the farm here. Louisville Bats hosted the Toledo Mud Hens over this past week in a 6-game series for the Reds AAA affiliates. They won the first 2, lost the second 2, and won the last 2 over the weekend, taking 4 out of the 6 games. They moved to a 12-9 record. JJ Bleday batting 338. He has only played 20 games, 13 runs scored, 25 hits, 5 home runs, 18 RBIs, 13 walks, and 20 strikeouts. Bats are third in the International League West Division, and they are getting ready to take on the 11-9 Iowa Cubs, who are also placing fourth. This coming up series begin Tuesday, ends on Sunday. They have 4 day games. They have 2 night games. For more information, check out minorlybaseball.com. The Chattanooga Lookouts, the AA affiliation for the Cincinnati Reds, have finished a 6-game series against Montgomery, where they lost the first 2 but won the last 4 games. They take 4 out of 6 at home. The Lookouts are 12-3 to begin the season, and they are getting ready to take on the Knoxville Smokies, a AA affiliates to the Chicago Cubs. They are second in the Southern League North Division. They are 8-7. They have 2 upcoming day games this week with 4 night games. The Lookouts are in first place of the Southern League Lookout North Division. For more information, check out minorlybaseball.com. High A baseball, Dayton Dragons interplay. They split the series against the Great Lakes, 3-3, winning the last 3 games. They enter in this week with a 7-7 record. They begin a 6-game series tomorrow against the first place 8-4 South Bend Clubs, a High A affiliates to the Chicago Cubs. The Dayton Dragons find themselves third place in the Midwest League. All ball clubs are facing Chicago Cubs minor league affiliates in this upcoming week's battle. So, a couple of leagues winning records, a tie series looking pretty good, if you're asking me. Let's take a look at the National League Central here, and that division. The Chicago Cubs swept the New York Mets in the 3-game series, winning the first game 12-4. 4-2 win on Saturday and a 2-1 win on Sunday. The Chicago Cubs are taking on and preparing for the New York Mets. That will take place beginning tonight at 7:40. Not the New York Mets, the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies enter in with a 8-13 record versus a 12-9 Cubs record. Taking place at Wrigley Field. It's a first of 4-game series tonight. The Mets extend their losing streak to 11 games. Man, they're just carrying over everything that went wrong with their organization at the second half of last year. Wow. The Pirates took 2 out of 3 against the Rays. They won on Friday 5-1. They dropped game 2 on Saturday 8-7, final in 13, and they won on 6-3 on Sunday. The Pirates will have today off before beginning a 3-game series on the road in Arlington to take on the Texas Rangers. The Pirates are 13-9 as the Rangers interplay with 500 record at 11-11. The Milwaukee Brewers took a 2 out of 3 in Miami over the weekend, winning the first game in 10 innings. Final score 7-5. Game 2 was a 5-2 victory and a loss of 5-3 on Sunday. Brewers will remain on the road as they head out to Detroit to take on the Tigers in a 3-game series. Not today, but begins Tuesday. Brewers will interplay with a 12-9 record as the Tigers have a 12-10 record. The St. Louis Cardinals swept the Houston Astros over the weekend, winning Friday 9-4, Tuesday 7-5, and Wednesday 7-5, or Sunday 7-5. The Cardinals are 13-8, and they will remain on the road as they head down south to take on the Marlins, who are 10-12. Miami begins in Miami. They begin a 3-game series tonight, starting first pitch at 6:40. The Cincinnati Reds will begin a 3-game series before a day off, coming back home to Great American Ballpark tonight against the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays, let me see, actually, look, Tampa Bay Rays just got done with the series with the Pirates, losing 2 out of 3. They're headed back to Tropicana Field, where the Rays find themselves with a 12-9 record, a 7-3 over the last 10 games, and a 1-game losing streak. They get ready to take on the 14-8 Reds. Rhett Lauder will be on the mound for the Reds for with a 2-1 record with a 3.252 ERA and 15 strikeouts. He last pitched against the Giants last week, where he pitched 6 2/3 of an inning, getting 5 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. The Reds are in second place of the American League East, just behind the New York Yankees, but above the Orioles, when those three teams all have double-digit wins to begin the season. So, overall, okay, overall, um, our NL Central is doing marvelous. Our minor league team is doing pretty good. They had a solid week. Hopefully that continues over. And we have another competitive series. And, the Reds need to continue to fight, continue to thrive, and to do their best. We're 3-0, right? So if we talk about this road stands to begin with, and we just focus on right here and right now, to me, it comes down to winning series that needs to be won, right? And this is a series that should be won. Minnesota was a series that should be won. But if I look at the road stands, the 6-game road stands, they should at least finish 3-3, which means they at least need to win. They could get swept. I wouldn't put it on the docket that they would get swept, but they could. I don't want to see that. But then what you would do is if you could win one, it's a win road series. And that's what you need to at least come back to Great American Ballpark with a 4-2 record. You're going to already win. Having a winning road stance means a lot, especially in a arguably competitive division that sees all 5 ball clubs with not just above 500 records, but with double digits wins. This division, everything you can take, you got to grab. So in a weekend series where you went up against a really competitive Minnesota Twins team, you took the sweep. I'll take it. Win the games that you should be winning. And when I look at this in hindsight on paper, I don't see the reason why the Reds can't win against Minnesota or win against Tampa Bay. And so this should be a series that the Reds take. And, especially there's no room for error, especially since the Brewers are headed out to Detroit, and we're going to see Detroit coming up here this weekend. Other things lurking around Major League Baseball just to gravitate over the weekend. Cincinnati, we already talked about that. But Aaron Judge and Ben Rice are now being talked about as this unique combo duo with the New York Yankees. I think that this is definitely a conversation worth to be mentioning, as the New York Yankees swept the Kansas City Royals over the weekend. On Sunday, Aaron Judge hit a 2-run home run, which followed by a Ben Rice home run in the first inning. Now, we've had I think it's always unique to have these 1-2 pairs, right? We combined Ellie and Gino. Well, Suarez makes it, so now that becomes a trio. But this is the 17th combined home runs, most in the duo this year. So combined between Aaron Judge, I think he has 9, and Ben Rice, who has 8, 17 total so far this season. Third Yankee duo with 8+ home runs each in the first 22 games. Let me just paint you that list for a second. Back in 1956, Yogi Berra and Mickey Mantle in the first 22 games had 8+ home runs each. Judge actually had the repeat a couple of years ago in 2022 with Anthony Rizzo. So you look at these 1-2 punch combos, And Aaron Judge has held two of the third's highest 8+ home runs. But when you are in the conversation, this is what baffles me because I look when you think of the classic baseball, I think of Yogi Bear, I think of Mickey Mantle, I think of Babe Ruth, right? And these, when you're in the conversations with these guys, Aaron Judge is, you should already be in the conversation. What about everyone else? Ben Rice is a part of it. First inning home runs. Babe Ruth has the most with 126. Mickey Mantle at 103. Aaron Judge sits at 90, four above Lou Gehrig. And he's on the trajectory. I don't know if he'll get up to Babe Ruth, but I'll let him see him get up to beyond Mickey Mantle. So the Yankees have some fire underneath them. San Diego Padres, Mason Miller is just now 1 inning shy of matching Clay Meredith's Padres record of scoreless innings that was set back in 2006. The Padres are also notably 10 out of the last 11, 13 out of the last 15, playing on a really hot streak. Mason Miller right now is pitching phenomenal. He's only faced 38 batters so far this year. He's struck out 27 of them. He's only allowed 4 total bases, 2 of them as singles, 2 of them as walks. And man, and the American National League record was led by the Dodgers' Oriel Hershiser. Sorry if I mispronounced that name. That was 59 scoreless innings, dated back to 1988. His K rate, his strikeout rate is the highest in the first 11 appearances since the 1900s. Man, Mason Miller is just on fire. When you talk about these type of numbers and these type of statistics, it's the comparisons. When you look at some of the great closers that I grew up on was Mariano Rivera. I love Trevor Hoffman, Heath Bell. You had Craig Kimball, Kenley Jansen. There's just so many, and now you're setting the stage as Mason Miller is etching himself in history. Well, it wouldn't be a weekend without Shohei Ohtani in the mix of things. He is added on to the mix as his on-base streak reaches now at 51. Last Dodger to have the highest on-base streak is Duke Snider back in 1954, where he recorded 58 consecutive games being on base. Now, part of this 51 game streak is dated back to last year when he first started it. But let's look at some of the guys here. He's about to tie Kevin Miller back in 07, Shin-Soo Choo back in 06, or Kevin Miller back in 18, excuse me. Orlando Cabrera had 63. Ted Williams back in 1949 had 84. He's trying to creep up along the lines of some of the greats. And to be able to do it, and to be able to do that on both sides of the ball, pitching-wise too, man, that is baseball news coming up over the weekend, what we took place. Last but not least, let's talk about the Cincinnati Bearcats. They took 2 out of 3 on the road against the UCF Knights. They were ranked number 21 heading into the weekend. The Bearcats, Quentin Coates hit his 23rd home run on Sunday's action in their 11-9 victory. The Bearcats move out to a 27-15 record. They are 8-10 in conference play with a 2-game winning streak. They are 15-5 at home, 11-10 on the road, and 1-0 at neutral locations. Their upcoming game is this Tuesday, April 21st, back on the road against the Wright State Raiders. They'll be playing at the Nischwitz Stadium in Dayton, Ohio. First pitch at 3 p.m. Cincinnati Bengals, as we approach the NFL draft, has made it a weekend transaction as they traded the 10th round overall pick to the New York Giants for the defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence II. Dexter is only 28 years old, weighs 340 pounds, and is 6'4". They also signed him with a 1-year extension with $28 million worth of value, ties him through the 2028 season. The Athletic, there are a couple different reports, a couple of mixed reports headed about this deal. Athletics gave it an A. Jeff Howe says, "Stop wasting time with Joe's prime." ESPN gives it a D because last season Dexter Lawrence was only 8.4 and pass rusher and pressure rush was 5.3%. News Sports gives it a C. CBS Sports gives it a B. At some point in his career, he was in the conversations along with Aaron Judge and Chris Jones, third in the best. And the question that we're going to ask ourselves is, can he bounce back to have a all-time great year? When you look at a $28 million contract, you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, if we didn't offer Trey Hendrickson that much, why are we offering another def? I think when it came down to Trey Hendrickson, the spoils has rotten in a sense. The relationship has gone south. So I can understand, it's time to look new and look fresh. Well, in my opinion, I just there was a lot of takes, a lot of mocks that I wasn't certain of that probably wouldn't have put us in a position to excel at. And what I mean by that is that either the people that we needed or we desperately wanted, we would have lost early on in the draft, which then would have hit the panic button to really what we need. And no one would have been valued at the number 10 spot to give them that forefront. The Bengals needed to still add depth to their pass rush. Dexter Lawrence provides the ability. Now, here's what I'm also just kind of thinking that could benefit this squad is when you when you start building your defense around some really big talent, you start creating double teams, right? We talk about this all the time with Jamar Chase. A lot of teams are going to double stack Jamar Chase. What does that do? That means your best cornerbacks are focusing, and everyone's focused on one side of the ball with Jamar Chase. Maybe on the other side of the ball, they're with T. Higgins. Well, that opens up to your 3 and 4 slot receivers. That opens up to your tight end to be available, making names for themselves. So it works the same way on the defense perspective, where you're now forcing that offensive line on the opponent side of the ball to have to step up and to block, maybe double block one pass rusher, a nose tackle possibly. That's going to leave open gaps for people to blitz. It's going to become a virtual strategy that the Bengals are going to have to explore and utilize the best. This is nothing new. Has happened before, and it still happens to today, but that's what you're creating. So you're opening up rooms as you see Shamar Stewart return, as you see um, our new players come into place. So I strongly think that this is great. Now we head into the draft, and what does the Bengals need? They need to still draft some quarterbacks, and maybe you could get away with that. Maybe after the draft, you could pick up one or two free agents and cornerbacks. But, you know, addressing the matter at hand, which the biggest issue had to be in the defense. Our defensive front, our defensive back, overall, our defense was the main concern last year. It gave up so many games, it gave up so many points, took us out of ball games early on. And even if they lasted, they didn't complete it. you we have to be able to, we're focusing a lot on our defensive now. That means there's a lot of confidence on our offense. And so if that's the case, that's the case. I still think maybe add some offensive line, a running back, maybe another tight end. But I at least here's the thing, at least the Bengals are trying to make moves. And they're not nonsense moves. This deal is not asking, well, who is he? It's not asking, well, what is he about? We know who Dexter Lawrence is. We know what he's capable of, and that's great. We know where things stand. That we have to ask ourselves now, heading into the season, is well, how do we utilize and value and get the most out of his talent? All right, to wrap up an NBA playoff update here as it continues tonight. But before that, over the weekend, we saw the Cavaliers beat the Raptors 126-113. The Nuggets beat the Timberwolves 116-105. The Knicks beat the Hawks 113-102. The Lakers beat the Rockets 107-98. On Sunday, we saw the Celtics beat the 76ers 123-91. We saw the Sun Thunder beat the Suns 119-84. We saw Magic beat the Pistons 112-101, and then 111-98 final. We saw the Spurs beat the Trailblazers. Today we have three games on the docket as the Raptors take on the Cavaliers at 7 p.m. Available on NBCS. Also at 8 p.m., we'll see the Atlanta Hawks taking on the New York Knicks. That'll be available on NBC. And then on NBC at 10:30, we'll see the Minnesota Timberwolves take on the Denver Nuggets. You can follow CBSSports.com to get all your latest NBA news stories and highlights. All righty, moving right along. Let's get down into some more WrestleMania talk. Some of the WrestleMania talk is going to roll over into this week as we just start breaking down a couple of highlighted things that's going to be more relations to Raw here. First of all, let's kind of present ourselves. So I was actually surprised not to see Paul Heyman out there with the Vision. I saw Paul Heyman after the fact with Braun Breaker, right? Braun Breaker makes his return. He spears Seth Rollins, costing him the match against Gunther at WrestleMania Night 1. But now Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman is united. Now we can see that feud. So my heading into Raw, this is going to kind of be a combined segment here because it's also what to expect for Raw tonight, the aftermath of WrestleMania. And now I see the storyline pivot. I'm putting it up in my notes. I have Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. That's the story. That's the number. That's the main picture. Is Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, the feud that we probably should have saw at WrestleMania. We saw Braun Breaker said, "Look, I'm costing you your WrestleMania moment." So I expect Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker to continue. I see maybe Braun Breaker making a segment. I see maybe Paul Heyman making a segment. This could possibly lead, which maybe looking ahead, foreshadowing here, a match for Backlash. So that's one thing that I'm looking for is how they respond off of that. Gunther, let's keep in the back of our mind. Gunther, yes, he won. It doesn't matter how he won. He kept his winning, his defeat intact. But he's made it clear to Paul Heyman that he's owed him. So does that get lingered now? Or does does the storyline focus on Seth and Braun and Gunther comes back later down the road? Like I said, speculations is speculations until we see it. Sure, I'm favored to see Gunther officially retire Brock Lesnar, but until we see that etch and sketch there, then it is what it is. But that's just that storyline. AJ Lee and Becky Lynch. There's been reports. Like I said, if this is true, it may be true. It may not. I don't, I'll read it and I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. But there's been reports that AJ Lee may be taking substantial amount of time away from ring. We also saw CM Punk lose last night. He may be taking some time away. I mean, he definitely had a tough time, a tough match against Roman Reigns. And if she does, she does. If they both take away and take the summer to recruit, what's great about a guy like CM Punk regrouping, we still have enough top talent to replace him. So we're not losing a step if Seth Rollins is not, CM Punk is not in the showcase. It's not in the conversation. He's also older in age. Let's face it. We do protect our wrestlers first, and he's been in the storyline on Monday Night Raw, week in and week out for the past several months. He's held down that fort as your world heavyweight champion. And so to take some time off. I see no story, I see the story came into a complete circle with Becky Lynch. So let's see where that's headed moving forward. Um, I don't know. And that's fine. This is where we don't need to know right now. Who is next for the Intercontinental Champion? I tell you, I don't want to see Bailey or Lyra Valkyria. But who is next to step up to take on Becky Lynch? Becky Lynch has proven to me to be one of the to go through persons to break into the WWE. She is paired, she had the feud with Lyra. She had, she's kind of been put into these positions where Becky, she's already made. She's already done it. She's already been there, done that, Hall of Fame bound. But it's how you. I'm still at the top. This is where my house is. And on Saturday, that's what she proved. I Show Speed had the 15 minutes of fame. I don't know what that does. The Usos get their tag team titles back and reform the bloodline? Does that begin that feud? I don't know, or begin that respark at Backlash. And it was just great to see Paige back at it, night one. A lot of people, it was significantly said, it was chanted out in the post show with Roman Reigns from the crowd that Oba is the next big thing. No questions asked. I think when you get to this feud, um, here's my only problem. Like, and I really didn't want to go down this route today, but here's my only problem that I saw with Oba Femi. He wasn't phased at all by the attack of Brock Lesnar. As a matter of fact, Brock delivered the F5 and he stood right up. Didn't phase him at all. And it shows us who's the dominant beast. And in this match and in this picture, Oba Femi is the dominant beast. But when you have Brock Lesnar, who's been that dominant beast for so many years, he wasn't phased by a lot of things himself. And then you finally have someone who comes in and the tables are turned. I guess that's where now you're painting the image that Oba's is untouchable. Oba could show up tonight and say, Roman, I want you. And to see that Roman is the one to then lay a beating on anyone who lays a beating on him has to automatically mean that they're better than Brock Lesnar. See where that math kind of comes in my head and where I'm trying to figure that out with? Yes, Oba had a few moments pushed in the ringside to the barricade where he was hit. But ultimately, he wasn't phased. And for when it came down to Roman, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, everyone who has received pain or a beating from Brock Lesnar struggled to get up. They got up. They faced the adversity, but they struggled. They were in pain. They had wounds. You could tell it was a fight. But for Oba Femi, you didn't leave a scratch on him. You didn't even make him sweat. And now you paint that image moving forward. And for anyone else that Oba's set to encounter, has to be a squash match. And when it is time, maybe it's now, maybe it's summertime, maybe it's the end of, maybe it's the end of the year. When it's time for Oba to go after Roman, go after Cody, how are you going to create a match where when Brock Lesnar was that image, Oba took over that image, he wasn't phased by Brock? How are you going to create that match where Oba now takes a beating? I get it. For match purposes, that is one indication. But when you look at this bigger picture, think that the WWE has kind of backed them up in the Raw. It has shown me that Oba's indestructible. Now you have to present him in everything he does, and his next opponent and his opponent's following has to be indestructible. What could keep him down? And it's not Brock Lesnar, which means if Brock Lesnar's beating anybody on that roster, it can't be any of them either. Which means it should be a snap of the fingers for Brock Obafemi to win a championship. And that should be right here, right now. You see what that conundrum is? Finn Balor defeats Dominic Mysterio. Penta wins a ladder match. I was bummed. Only got, so I see 2 out of the 3 go on to win. I didn't see that clean sweep that I predicted. A lot of people complain about match times. You know what? It paced out fine for me. It really, they got right down to the point. They made it exclusive. Sure, could we have seen a few more minutes be dedicated to matches? Yeah, but you had to clear the ring. You had to set up for the next thing, and it got me a chance to do things. I'm at home. I'm enjoying it. I'm in the middle of cooking dinner. 6 o'clock at night. I'm in the middle of putting my son to sleep. I'm in the middle of taking showers, getting ready for the next day. I'm in the middle of cleaning and getting the household prepped. So it allowed me to step away for 4 to 5 minutes and get something else done before I had to, hey, let's jump back to the couch and watch WrestleMania. Liv Morgan wins the Women's World Championship. Look, Liv Morgan deserves the title. I got thinking over this week, and I just had to tell myself, out of everything Liv Morgan has done, she deserves to have this single run. She needs to be in that spotlight. And I'm glad that Dominic didn't win. I'm glad that, you know, JD McDonough didn't win, because it takes away from Liv Morgan being in the spotlight. And the Judgment Day is about Liv Morgan right now in the spotlight. And, she had help from Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez. And I think this is going to be fun. I think it's going to be, now you can kind of see this, I'm going to say cockiness. You can see this arrogance. She's going to kind of trample over anyone because now she's better than everyone. But this has been a long time waiting for someone, for Liv Morgan to get this spotlight. And, you know, so I say for helpful, let's enjoy the ride while it's there. But that match was probably, if I'm not mistaken, that match was 6 minutes and 50 seconds. That was the second shortest match. Obafemi was the shortest with under 5 minutes. Typical between 7 to 15 minutes. The longest match of the night was night 2 in the main event, 33 minutes 57 seconds with Roman Reigns and CM Punk. You had two matches ending in 10 minutes. 3 matches ending in about 15 minutes, and then the other matches ended about between 5 to 10 minutes. So, like I said, wasn't too bad. Kept me invested in intrigue. Wrestle Raw tonight on Netflix. Pushing forward. All right, WrestleMania is behind us. We can celebrate all we want about WrestleMania, but the idea is that backlash is there. Roman Reigns is now this full-time wrestler or athlete again. He's going to be making more appearances, rightfully so, right? I kind of covered a lot of Raw talk here, so knowing what we can look into. We talked about a couple of feuds, but what is next for the WWE? Is there anybody being called up? Making surprises, returns we can see. But that is all that we can expect for tonight. We will be back tomorrow so we could talk about uh, the Raw after WrestleMania. We'll still talk about WrestleMania all week long. We got to get ready for SmackDown. But that is all the time I have for you guys today. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please, please, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Have those notifications on. so you don't miss a single episode. Also, follow us on our social media pages. We're on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. You can also download us and take us on the road with you. Listen to us at home, at work, at the gym, wherever you get your podcasting needs on. The TNC Sports Talk is there, available to your needs. But that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys again for tuning into the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin, and until tomorrow, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.